Everybody, welcome back to the channel. This video is brought to you by Whole Soul Counsel, holistic and Christ-centered care for every heart, for every home, and for the body of Christ. Check them out in the description below. Welcome back, everybody, to the channel. My name is Lee. I am a psychotherapist and biblical expositor with a deep fascination on all things neuroscience and the correlation to spiritual formation. And on this particular channel, we pursue living a life of wholeness. And by that, I just mean living the abundant life that we believe Christ made available to us, even in this broken and hostile world. We believe that through Christ, he provides the truth and the way, and through understanding how he created our brains and bodies to function, a marriage between those two, we can realize the abundant life and thrive in this world, even in the midst of the brokenness and chaos that surrounds us and in many cases fills us. We believe there's a pathway for that. And so if that's of interest to you, you've stumbled upon the right place. We're so glad that you've returned or that the algorithm brought you to us. Either way, if you're new here, welcome. We'd love to invite you to be part of the family by hitting that subscribe button and turning on the notifications so you never have to rely on the algorithm again. Also, if you would, if this video is of any value to you, consider hitting that hype button that's down below. It's a new-ish feature that YouTube has installed on many videos that simply allow you to share this video with a wider range of people on the YouTube universe. And so that would mean a great deal to us. Or smash the like button, and especially leaving comments below, because that's my favorite part, is hearing from you. And so we'd love to invite you to do all of these things and engage if this video is valuable or if this channel provides any value to you. But without further ado, let's jump into today's video and conversation. Today, I want to spend the next few minutes talking about an experience and an issue that I think is going to resonate with you deeply, because this is a deeply human issue and a deeply human experience. And I believe that we can together begin to discover some steps in a pathway to freedom. Have you ever been in a moment where your being present was incredibly necessary? Maybe it's around the dinner table. Maybe it's going on a hike or a lake day, or being on a date with your spouse or significant other, or being at a ball game or dance recital for your children. Some type of situation where being present is what you desire, what your loved ones desire, but you have this inability to be present. Even though you are there in the flesh, you're not there mentally and maybe even emotionally. And it's due to dissociation, an intense daydream, if you will, where you are in your head, deeply ruminating over different things. Now, before we get too far into this, I want to make clear here, there are a couple different reasons that we might be in our head. Not all of them are innately bad. For instance, you may be deep in thought philosophically or existentially, and this deep self-reflective thought can actually be very healthy and produce a lot of growth and fruit in your life if it's not taking away from your being present with family and different things of that nature. But the content of the rumination isn't in and of itself a bad thing. Perhaps you might ruminate if you're like me. You get distracted because your brain just floods you with tasks that you got to do and you can't forget through the day. That's actually a good thing that we want, but we want to have systems in place that help us navigate that. And that's another video for another day. But today I specifically want to focus on the toxic experience of the root of these thoughts and ruminations being worry. All right, maybe you're worried about outcomes at work. Maybe you're worried about health situations. Maybe you're worried about finances. Maybe you're worried about school assignments. There's a whole plethora of different things that at the root of your rumination is really a worry of an adverse outcome or an unfavorable outcome. And even, you got to be careful, even some of the existential and philosophical thoughts and even some of the task-driven thoughts can be rooted in a worry of a potential negative or unfavorable outcome. More times than not, when we get stuck in this deep dissociative rumination daydream, there's worry involved somewhere. And today's video, I want to spend a few minutes talking you through a couple practical steps to begin to rewire your brain, the neurons in your brain, the pathways that have been created in your brain to break this rumination cycle, to break this dissociation cycle, and to be more present with your family, with your friends, with the moments of life that matter most, so that you can be 10 years down the road and not look back with regret and be like, how did I get here? It flew by so fast and I don't have any moments and memories to look back on that I was so deeply immersed in that I can still taste them to this day because you were so busy dissociating and ruminating over worries. Okay, and so hopefully today's video will begin to help. Now, the first thing you need to know is I'm going to talk about 3 steps. These 3 steps must be a daily, repetitive habit that you build. It's a muscle you train over time. It is not a switch you flip. So don't expect to do this one time and feel like it worked. Okay, this is something that you will look back in a few weeks or a few months of consistent practice and look back and see, I am a completely different person than I was a couple weeks ago. This doesn't have the power over me that I did. I am able to handle when I slip into these rumination moments or dissociative moments, where these deep daydreams, where I am tempted to withdraw from being present. I'm able to handle them. They don't have the power over me. The duration has reduced, the intensity has reduced, and the frequency has reduced over time. And so, again, this is not a light switch. This is a daily practice, okay? So the first step is to identify the root worry, okay? Between or beneath every rumination and every dissociative experience, there is a root worry involved, and you may have to sift through different things and really keep digging deep before you get to the core things you're worried about. But you need to first identify them. What am I actually worried about? What future outcome am I actually worried about? Even you may be tempted to say, well, I'm not worried about something in the future. I have regret over the past. Okay, that's a whole nuanced subject. I'm not going to get into it today, but I want to invite you to think about this. In many cases, even the regret we're feeling about the past is worry about something of the future. I regret not being present there because I'm worried about how my kids view me and think of me today, or will view me and think of me tomorrow. All right, so even many times beneath what we think is past regret, and that saddens us, is actually a worry about something. And so I invite you to even consider, is there a worry underneath something that doesn't immediately seem like a worry? Okay, but that's not always the case, but in many cases that I think you'll find that that's relevant. All right, so we want to identify this worry, and what we want to do is realize that every worry, every fear reveals to us an area we do not fully rely on or trust God. Let me put it this way. Every fear, okay, perfect love casts out fear. That's not to say your perfect love casts out fear, though there's some truth to that. But what I want to focus on is a perfect revelation and understanding of God's love for us casts out fear. Why? Well, love says that another wills our good and is ready to act towards our good, even at their own expense, right? Which the Father has already done in sending his Son. But what we're really saying is with fear is that we don't trust that God wills and intends our good in some area, whether it's your financial security, whether it's your health, whether it's your employment or lack thereof, or whatever these areas are in your life that you're worried about. You're essentially revealing an area where you don't actually believe God intends and wills your good. And so what we want to do is think about that for a minute. And what we want to do is search the scriptures. What are God's promises towards us? Well, first of all, the first promise I want to draw you to is seek first the kingdom and its righteousness. In other words, pursue above all else the righteousness of the kingdom, but not just that, understanding the way things work in the kingdom, the values of the kingdom, and pursue living in that reality on the earth. Above all else, above finances, above job, above a ministry, above anything else in life, pursue first, seek first, let every choice you make, let the motive be the kingdom on earth expressed through you and its righteousness, its right doing, its love expressed, all right, in your life. And if we will do that, there's a promise. All these things will be added unto you. All of what things? All the things you need in life. Your Father already knows you have need of them. And he said he'll take care of you. And Jesus points us to this truth. Hey, if you will pursue above all else the kingdom and its righteousness, all of these things will be taken care of. You won't have to worry about any of them. And what we find is in our life, we're actually pursuing a whole bunch of other things in our own strength rather than surrendering them and pursuing first the kingdom and its righteousness. Okay? And so we want to reflect on the promises in God's word and actually ask, do I believe them? Do I believe God is who he says he is? Do I trust that he wills my good? And so what I invite you to do is once you find that worry, you speak the truth to the worry. All right? God wills my good in this area. And I like to say this, even if blank, fill in the blank with your worry, happens, it'll be okay. Say that out loud. You should just feel like your body like relax for a minute and settle down, like just this weight taken off of you when you say and hear these words out loud. Even if I lose everything, it'll be okay. Even if I lose my job, it'll be okay. Even if I lose my ability to see or hear or run or whatever it may be in your particular context, it'll be okay. It's all going to be okay. All things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. In other words, those who seek first the kingdom and its righteousness. Love God, meaning you're ready to act towards his benefit, even at your own expense, and are called according to his purposes. What is that? That is the putting off of the human instinct nature, denying the passions and the flesh and the rationales of our default way of thinking, and choosing to put on the garment that is Christ and the new man. That's his purposes. So if we're pursuing those things, all things work together for the good. Okay? Now, once you've identified this worry, the second step is that we're actually going to surrender control of the outcome that you're worried about to God. You're going to completely surrender control. If you're task-driven, you're having these task ruminations, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times when fear is actually underneath the task, your tasks are actually ways that you're attempting to control the unfavorable outcome that you fear. And so what will actually happen is when you surrender control of the outcome to God, okay, by default, the task-driven ruminations sort of fall by the wayside naturally because all of a sudden you don't need them anymore. And now this is not to be mistaken with being irresponsible. Hang on with me because there's a third step that we're going to get to in just a minute. But before we can get to the third step, you cannot step into the third step without having fully surrendered the outcome to God. If you do, you will be enslaved to worry, rumination, stress. Okay? And many of us fall into this trap. So you have to surrender the outcome to God and release control. Release trying to control the outcome. If you try to control things you can't control, you're going to bind yourself up in anxiety and stress. Okay? You can't control whether your employer fires you or not. You can't control whether you have the finances you think you need. Any old event could come across that you completely unexpected and wipe out your savings account, no matter how diligent you were trying to avoid that. Okay, you can do everything in your power to try to control things, but at the end of the day, you still cannot control the outcome. So you might as well surrender that to a God who wills your good and free yourself up from the burden that comes with trying to control things. Okay? After you have surrendered the outcome to the Lord who wills your good, who loves you, okay, you can now free yourself up to pursue. The only thing you're worried about is not making a name for yourself, an income for yourself, keeping your body in pristine shape, which again, you have to really check your motives, because you can do good things like exercise and a good diet from one, trying to steward the vessel that God gave you for his spirit to dwell in, or out of fear of not dying. And it's the motive that matters, okay? Not necessarily the action in and of itself. But after you've surrendered, okay, now you're going to make an intentional choice that is congruent with your surrender, okay? It's an intentional choice congruent with your surrender. So, in other words, what is the next practical thing that you can do to be obedient with what's right in front of you right now? Not later today, not tomorrow, right now, here today. How can I pursue first the kingdom, its righteousness, love God, and be about his purposes right here, right now? How can I be obedient? What is one next step that I can take that is evidence of my surrender? What is one next step that I can take? And then surrender the outcome to God. If it's building a business, if it's building a ministry or launching a ministry, if it's school, if it's something to do with your employment, something to do with your parenting or your marriage, whatever it may be, okay? You don't have to scale the mountain today. Matter of fact, whether or not you get to the top of that mountain and what you receive or inherit or get when you get there is completely out of your control. Surrender that to God and just take one step that's right in front of you right now that's congruent with your faith, that doesn't suggest that you actually don't trust, because, you know, we make actions and behaviors that actually say we don't trust and we're still trying to control. Instead, make this action an action of stewardship and surrender. Now, why is all of this important? Why are these 3 steps important, and how does it relate to neuroscience? One, it, through neuroplasticity, begins to rewire our brains, okay? Your focus on something, this is why flow states are becoming increasingly popular in research, and they're the efficacy of incorporating therapies that get people into flow states, whether that's hiking or surfing or rock climbing or art journaling, whatever it is that gets you in this flow state. Really what we're describing is intense focus. And when your brain is in focus mode, it is the force. If Hebb's law, neurons that fire together, wire together, right? So what happens is if you're trying to create a new neural pathway in your brain, not only do you need these to fire together, to wire together, but you need a force that can sort of grab them both and hold them together long enough to fire together, long enough to glue together, where you can kind of let go and things happen habitually without a force. Your focus is the force that holds the neural pathways together long enough so that they can wire together, okay? So for a while, you have to focus intentionally on these 3 steps over and over and over again so that Hebb's law can take effect, so that you can literally blaze new trails in your brain, and then eventually these 3 steps become habit, instinctual. You do them without thinking, okay? But that takes time. That doesn't happen overnight, but that's how we renew our brains and renew our minds. So when you make this physical choice and action, it is the focus, the force that takes out of your head and puts into body, into the material universe, the decision you made in your mind and in your heart. And through the choice, you begin to rewire the brain. You begin to enact Hebb's law, initiate Hebb's law, but it's through the focus required to engage in the choice that those neurons can be held together long enough to wire together over time. And so I'll reiterate these. One is when we're ruminating and stuck, catch yourself ruminating, dissociating. Hey, what is this I'm worried about? All right, identify that worry. Then we're going to say, even if this happens, it's going to be okay. I know God wills my good. Even if something negative happens, even if the worst thing that I can imagine happens, it's still going to be okay. God still wills my good. And God intends for what the enemy meant for evil, he's going to turn it for good. And in the end, I'm going to see that this needed to happen for some reason that I can't foresee or understand right now. I'm going to choose to trust God in this. And then I'm going to surrender the outcome to God right here and right now. And then I'm going to make a choice that's congruent with my surrender. Maybe that's just, hey, I'm going to be present with my wife and children now. Boom, that's the choice. I don't need to ruminate anymore. I don't need to worry anymore. I'm going to be present. Or, hey, I'm going to give this big financial gift to a ministry or to a mother in need or to an individual in need in some way, shape, or form, because I trust that this is God's goodwill and love being expressed in the earth, righteousness, his good purposes being expressed in the earth, and that he's going to take care of us. I don't have to try to hoard and control our financial situation. I can be free with this. Whatever the choice and behavior is, it backs up and reinforces the choice of trust and surrender you just made in your mind, which worry and rumination have a very, very tough time coexisting with surrender and security that we find when we trust that God wills our good and then behave in a manner that's congruent with that choice. Okay, so I hope that this has been helpful for you. Let me know your thoughts and comments down there below. I'm very interested in hearing from you. If this has been helpful for you, please consider sharing it directly with someone that you think it might be helpful for as well, to get the good news to spread even further. But as always, until next time, God bless you guys.